Welcome to the next Duck of the Month painting, the Valentine duck. Every fourth Friday, we will practice mixing 3 primary colors as we paint a duck. For this painting, I'm going to use these materials. I have an Arches block of about 8 by 8 inches, cold pressed paper. I have 3 colors by M.Graham, nickel azo yellow, quinacridone rose, and phthalocyanine blue. And I'm going to use these brushes and an embosser. If you don't have an embosser, it's okay. You can always use the corner of a paint tube. You could use the end of a paintbrush. I'm going to use my silver black velvet 6 and 4, my silver whites in size 2, 00, and 50, and then my small Rosemary & Co. eradicator brush. Let's get started. First, I want to show you how to transfer your design to watercolor paper. Print out the outline provided to you in my post dated January 31st, 2025. Put it to size and position it on your paper. I have an Arches approximately 8 by 8 block of cold pressed paper, and I want my duck to be about right there. He's looking to the left, so I want him to be kind of over to the right. Tape it down. Place a piece of carbon paper. This has carbon on one side, so I put it under the outline, and I'm going to trace it with a red pen. I'm going to speed this part up because it's self-explanatory. And you have your outline ready to paint. And then if you have any graphite that has rubbed off anywhere else around the painting, you can use a kneaded eraser to just go around and dab it up. I also like to do this on the outline because then I can get rid of some of the excess graphite or excess carbon. Don't want to do the rose too much because I need those lines. Okay, I have a little bit there. And since my background is staying white, I want to make sure that it is really cleaned off. Then I keep it in a little container so it won't dry out. Today I'm using the same 3 colors as the last duck. I'm using nickel azo yellow, quinacridone rose, and phthalo blue, all by M.Graham. Start by spritzing my mixing palette and mixing up some of the yellow for the beak. I want it very, very light, so I'm going to add a lot of water right here and go ahead and paint that in. And then go over the whole thing. Do the same for the feet. I'm going to add a little bit of the red to make an orange. And I'm going to go over all of the lines. This is our first layer, and it'll be our lightest value. Okay, I forgot a line right here. Even with a red pen, it's sometimes hard to get every single line. Get a little orange on this one. So these are both dry. I'm going to now wet the whole duck right over the eye. I'm trying to keep this to 30 minutes so it's not a big time, not time suck, but you know what I mean. time commitment. But the whole duck, I'm going to let that water soak in while I mix up a bluish gray. And you can see on here that I also have a little bit of pink in the neck. Okay, so let's get a little more water up here because it has already sunk in. Now, I used this palette last time, and I think I used it for another painting as well, and I haven't cleaned it off. So sometimes it's fun to just use what you already have mixed up in your palette. I'm going to start with a little bit of the pink here in the neck. And while it's wet, you just paint up against the edge. It won't go over here because it's dry. It will blend into the wet part. Let's add a little bit of pink here. How about a little down here? And that's probably good. Now this is starting to get damp, so it's a good time to grab some of the gray that I already have mixed. It's a sort of a purpley gray, so I'm going to add a little more blue to it. And because this is wet and this is wet, I'm going to take off some of the pigment, and I'm going to now do some little contouring lines to show the duck's feathers. I want those a little lighter, so I'm going to now pick them up with a damp brush. And I like how that leaves some very blurred lines on there. Do the same thing over here. So my brush is drier over here, so it's not going crazy. The pigment is kind of staying put. Do some shadow under the neck. And again, the paper is dry, so wet, so I have a blended line here and a hard line here. I'm going to grab some of that. Blend that in. Now when this dries, I'll go over it again with some more gray, but I will not wet the duck first. And I'm going to put a little bit of shadow down here to round the duck out. Little shadow on the legs. I've rinsed my brush out and now it's just damp. I'm going to re-wet the head and add a little bit of this gray. I'm going to wipe it off around the edge. It's a very light value. Put a little bit around where the eye will be. I think I've lost the circle for my eye. I can kind of still see it. And a little bit here for the indent where the bill is coming in, beak or bill. And I want to add a little bit of the pink for interest. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and dry that with my dryer. Okay, everything is dry. I'm going to work on the beak by adding some orangey burnt sienna. I have a little bit of a brown mixed up here. I'm going to add a little bit of red and a little bit of yellow. And there we have a nice burnt sienna. So I'm going to water it down and add it to the beak. I'm going to wet the beak. So now the beak is wet, I can add the burnt sienna and it will be soft. Add a little down here, some up here. I overall want the beak to be a little darker in value. And I want to keep that white or lighter. And there's an area right here that I've wiped all the water out. I want this to stay a little bit lighter. So now I'm just going to fill in this. And this. Pick that up with a damp brush. And I'm going to let that dry. And now I'll come down to the feet. A little more red. Oops, that's too much red. Just blend that in with some of the burnt sienna and now some of the yellow. There we go. Now the feet, where they bend, are going to be a little darker. And then in here, I want to have it be the same color as that or close to. I'm going to add some yellow. I want this to be soft. So with the damp brush, I'm blending in the edge, adding a little red. Sometimes you can just put the pigment on into the wet wash and then get it out of your brush and then blend it. I want this color in here. And here. And I'm going to let that dry. Okay, it's all dry, and I want a more vibrant orange on both of these parts. So I'm going to mix up quinacridone rose with a little bit of yellow. It's still a little bit weak. I add some more yellow. That's better. So now I'm going to go ahead and paint on the dry paper down to that lighter spot. And now with a damp brush, kind of move it around the painting. Damp brush and blend it. Clean it off and blend it. That's better. And now for the legs, I'm going to actually just do some, I'm going to leave these how they are, I think. I think I should fill them in. That looks better. And this time I'm going to go around. I just dipped my brush in a little bit of water and I kind of dabbed it. I still have a little bit of the pigment on it, and I'm going to just go over the whole foot now. And you'll be able to see where we glazed over the color that I already put down. Okay, damp brush. You can tell that this is darker than the toes just from glazing. So I'll do it again here. I'm going to get some of the orange, fill in the leg. I want less pigment for this. And I'm going to glaze over the whole foot. There's already a layer of paint there. So that existing layer of paint will be a fraction of a tiny bit darker than the toes. Nice little hack, huh? It's just called glazing. Damp brush to get up some of the excess. Clean up that edge a little. Okay. Got out a 00 to do the eye. I'm just going to use a very light gray first. I just got the tiniest bit of pigment on here and I'm going to fill in the whole eye. Leaving a little tiny bit of white around the rim. Looks really weird right now, but that's okay. And then while I have out this brush, this is not quite dry. These are pretty dry. I'm going to go ahead and do the lines. Just go back and forth, upside down smiles. Make them irregular, some coming from the left, some coming from the right, and some in the middle. I'm going to do a couple with the darker color. Okay, now I'm going to use a number 2, and I'm going to now go around this diffused gray area and do a few more little defined lines. I'm going to use a very light value of the gray that we used, add more water to get a lighter value, and I'm going to just sort of make some wispy little lines. So these are the wings. This and this are wings. I want to just hint at their existence here because it just looks like a body. They are holding on to this heart. I'm going to grab some of this blue and add it. Maybe grab some of the red too and maybe do a purple. Yeah, that's pretty. Get it lighter with some water. Don't like that much. Let's get rid of that. And some dry brush. Do a little bit up here. I'm holding the brush on its edge. I'm going to go right over the eye. Okay. Now I want to do the heart, and I like how I did this heart a couple of years ago with a few hard lines and a few soft lines. So I think I want to try for that now. And what I'm going to do is mix, I'm going to get rid of some of this and make a clean spot so I can mix just some pink. And on dry paper, I'm going to go ahead and fill in the heart. Actually, I'm going to get the middle of it wet. And then I'm going to fill it in. I like this little trick because I don't have to watch the leading edge and make sure it doesn't dry on me. So I can just let it go into the water and it's not going to dry in the amount of time it takes me to fill the heart in. Now with the damp brush, I'm going to go over this. See how it's starting to bleed? Can you see that? I'm going to just kind of touch the edge with a little bit of water in some places. Okay, do a little bit down here. And then when this dries, I'll do another coat of the pink and not come all the way out here, but it'll be a hard line within this soft blended area. Okay, it's all dry. And I'm dipping back into this pink, but first I'm going to wet the middle. And now I'm going to go right over again. Okay. I grabbed my 00 again and I'm going to finish the eye. put in the nostril and do the line on the bill. I'm going to put a black center in the eye, and black is just a gray that I've mixed before with, I'll do it for you right now in case you haven't seen this before. What I do is take blue and some red to make a purple, and then you add yellow, that makes green. Sometimes if you do too much yellow, it makes a green. Then I'm going to add green and yellow, I'm sorry, green and red are opposite on the color wheel, so they will neutralize each other. And this is what happens when you add red to green. It's still more of a dark green than it is a gray, so I'm going to add a little more red. Do a little bit at a time. And then when it's wet, you're going to automatically have a lighter value, but when you allow it to dry on the palette, now you have concentrated pigment in the color that you mixed. So that comes in handy when you want to do something like an eye. You can just, with a damp brush, grab a little bit of your dark that you already have on your palette and put it on your painting. And I know that looks dark blue when I spread it out like that, but when you put it on the painting concentrated, no one's going to say, oh, that's blue, that's not black. Because our brain puts it together that that's just a dark spot, it's not a particular color. Okay, now I'm just going to dip my brush. I dipped it into the clean water and I'm wiping it off. And I'm going to very carefully draw this little line. And I'm not making it a solid line, just it needs to show a little separation between the top and the bottom jaw. And I don't want it to be a standout element. And then just a little bit of contour here. Dipped it in the water, cleaned it off, dragging it through. Add a little orange. Ready for the flower? With this super dark green, you know what, I think I'm going to add just a little more yellow to that and turn it back into a green. Okay, that's a good green for this rose. So it's in the mouth, so I'm going to put it under this line, coming out this way, and then that. Now I'm going to lighten this with some water, and I'm going to add a little more yellow. More water, and let's do the leaves. I'm going to start with these here on the rose. And then for that vein, I'm going to use the tip of this embossing tool. I'm going to go over that one more time so that really shows. Let's do the next one. Soak up some of that with a damp brush. Put the vein. And then this one's just tiny. It's folded over on itself. So what this embossing tool did was dent the paper, and the pigment settled in the dent. And then you don't have to paint a line. Now for the rose, I'm going to fill in the whole thing with some pale pink. Easiest rose ever. I'm going to leave a couple of little white spaces up in here for some highlight. Randomly at the top of the rose, up here in the middle of it. And while it's wet, I'm going to add some darker pigment down at the bottom. And I'm going to let that dry. Now it's dried. To finish the rose off, I'm going to grab some of the darker value of the pink. And right here in the middle, I'm going to do a little oval, but leave some of it white. I'm going to do a little dark here, a little bit of dark there, and I'm going to blend it. And then a little bit of pink here, giving this rose a little bit of shape. All done. I'm going to go right around the eye with a little bit of that dried pigment that I have there. And I'm going to add a little bit of it to this side and this side. Just get out the smallest brush you have and give it a try. Add a little more pink. And this is the point where I look at the painting and think about what I want to fix, if anything, and what I want to add. So I'm just going to quick fix this line here on the beak where some orange pigment went beyond. I dipped the eradicator brush in clear water, and sometimes I let the water stay there and let it fall onto the paper, but then and other times I wipe it off. And I want to soften this tip of the beak. And I want to get a little bit of highlight up here. That gives it a little more shape. I'm going to soften some of this. We have some pigment that has collected at the edge. And I'm going to now reveal some more of the white. I'm just going to kind of go along with the direction of the feathers and define those wings a little bit. Do the same up here. And if you have hard lines that you didn't notice before, like right there, and this is bothering me. I don't really love the dry brush here, so I'm just gonna kind of, in lines, soften it and lift it out. Same here. Now for the little highlight in the eye, I'm going to get the teeniest, tiniest little drop of white and put it right inside there. I'm just going to add a little bit of shadow at the bottom of the feet, or under the feet. I'm going to wet it. Actually, no, I'm not. I'm going to take some shadow color, some of this gray purple that I already have mixed. I'm going to go right under, damp brush to soften it. Same thing over here. And then a damp brush. And then within that shadow, adding a little pink, a little bit of blue, a little bit of yellow, and that's mixing on the paper. And then when that dries, you'll be able to see the different colors in the shadow. I really hope you enjoyed this painting. I hope it was simple and you learned a little bit about mixing. Simple little tips and tricks too. Happy Valentine's Day and thank you for watching. Have a great day.